It's time. Do you have a personal connection to Ipman and Bruce Lee?
My master, my shifu, was actually Ipman's nephew. I don't know, you're probably too young. The morals, maybe, that go behind.
Many people in Australia who are studying Wing Chun boxing. 向大家拜个年。
蛇年吉祥。
Wing Chun practitioners believe that a correct Wing Chun stance is like a piece of bamboo, firm but flexible, rooted but yielding. Today's guest is an expert not only in Wing Chun boxing, but many types of martial arts from all over Asia, including unarmed and weapon fighting arts from Korea, Japan, the Philippines, and most importantly, China. Our guest has trained mostly, though, in Southern Chinese boxing styles and is officially qualified to teach the Southern Chinese style of Kung Fu, Wing Chun. What makes today's guest stand out, though, is that despite being an expert in these fields, Paul Rackemann is not Chinese. In fact, he is Australian, and he's here with us today at FaceTime. Hello everybody, welcome to FaceTime Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Hazza. Today is a very special episode because it's Chinese New Year, so I would like to take this opportunity to 向大家拜个年，祝你身体健康，祝你天天开心。然后我还要说一句广东话，恭喜發財。Sorry if my Cantonese wasn't perfect, but I tried my best. And today we have a special guest because you are a specialist in Chinese boxing. So it's very fitting that you're here for Chinese New Year. Now, before we start, do you have anything you would like to say to the viewers at home for Chinese New Year?
Thanks, thanks. 大家好，新年快乐，蛇年吉祥。今天我来这里介绍咏春拳，谢谢。
Okay, so here you're going to introduce Wing Chun, am I right?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so what exactly is Wing Chun boxing?
Okay, you probably have to look at, it's a form of Kung Fu, a Chinese martial art, so you have to look at the two major, or actually there's probably three major families in the Chinese martial arts. One is the northern styles.
Okay.
Okay, then you have the southern style.
Yep.
Southern styles, sorry. And then you could also interpret different styles as inner Chinese martial arts boxing and outer Chinese martial arts boxing,
okay.
which actually refers to how you develop energy and power.
Wow, so that's quite complicated actually.
It is complicated, and the Wing Chun is a southern Chinese martial art, so the difference there in styles between the north and south is you have a lot of boxing, a lot of hand techniques in the southern style, so Wing Chun emphasizes a lot of fists, elbows, whereas the northern styles, they emphasize a lot of legs, a lot of high kicks and whatnot.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But am I right in guessing that Wing Chun style boxing originated in southern China?
Yes, it's it depends on who you talk to. You have different stories, but Wing Chun, you can sort of trace it back to around the 1600s. Okay, and it's a lot to do with the Ming dynasty and the Qing dynasty.
So there's a long history there.
Very long history, very long history. And again, you look at who's telling the story, but the story originally, I think, comes from Fushan.
Fushan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so we're right in the place where Wing Chun boxing started.
Yeah.
Wow, so it's a pleasure to have you because obviously
Thanks.
we're here in Guangdong and Wing Chun boxing started in Guangdong. Now, how long have you been studying this form of martial arts?
This particular form of martial arts would have been, when I started, 2003, so 10 years.
Wow, so quite a long time.
Yeah, it's been 10 years, yeah.
Now, how long do you have to study before you can call yourself an expert?
I probably wouldn't use the word expert ever, because you can always learn. What you sort of do is you attain a certain level, and then from there you sort of realize that you've just only begun and you've got to move on again. So you always, it's a constant progression, a constant maturing rather than a matured form, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Is this your first time here in Guangdong?
It's my second time. The first time, unfortunately, was more of a business trip. Where this time is more enjoyable. I can actually come and do things I'd like to do, and that is and if I get the time, and hopefully I will, I'll get to a few Wing Chun schools around Guangdong. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So this time the trip is based mostly around Wing Chun boxing itself.
correct.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what do you like most about Wing Chun boxing?
Wing Chun boxing is it's efficient in a sense. It does away with a lot of. If you ever get to see any sort of northern style Chinese martial arts, and I don't want to upset anybody who studies northern style kung fu, but a lot of it is based on animal techniques.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they mimic a lot of animal movements.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the Wing Chun boxing is more or less based on physics, and it's to do with the structure of the human body. Yeah, so it's more scientific in that sense.
What was it that made you discover this form of this art?
Okay, I'd have to go back to when I was quite young and watching. I don't know, you're probably too young for this, Hazza, back home in Australia. But there was a TV show back home in Australia. It used to come on every afternoon about 5 o'clock called Monkey Magic.
Oh no, I do know that show.
You do? Oh,
yes, I used to watch it with the funny lip syncing.
Yeah, it was actually filmed in Japan. It's a Japanese.
Oh, okay. Oh really?
It's
I
Japanese
always thought
production.
It was Chinese.
No, it's a Chinese story, but it's this particular TV show that we got back home in Australia was a Japanese production, but it's based on the Chinese Journey to the West story, or Xiaoji. So it's about Sun Wukong, which is a monkey king. So I started watching that. From there, that's when I sort of got into Chinese culture, in particular Chinese martial arts. But it wasn't until I was about maybe 12 years old that my uncle put on a Bruce Lee movie for me.
Oh, okay.
I saw the Bruce Lee movie, so from then on I thought, okay, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really changed your life
Actually,
just by simply playing that movie.
Yeah, I'd have to say two of my uncles. One, he studied Chinese martial arts himself, and he got me into the martial arts as a kid. And then it was my other uncle who put on the Bruce Lee movie that really influenced me and pushed me towards the southern Chinese style boxing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's really a family affair then.
It is very much a family thing. Yeah.
So does your whole family practice Wing Chun style boxing?
Yes. I wouldn't say Wing Chun style boxing, but definitely some sort of formal martial arts.
Okay.
So I can remember as a kid going to my uncle's house on my mum's side, and I'd walk in the house and you'd have Chinese characters on the wall. Out the back there would be a wooden dummy. Do you know what the wooden dummies are?
No, what are they?
In Chinese
it's
called
practicing.
Yeah, in Chinese
boxing?
it's called Mu Ren Zhuang.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Which is where you have it's a log and you have some arms and you practice particular movements. So they had one.
That must hurt if you're hitting the logs, right?
It does in the beginning, but after a while you tend to develop a...
So did you get lots of bruises on your arms?
Yeah. In the beginning. Even now I don't practice it as much, so if you don't do it for a couple of months and hit it the next day, or you hit it and the next day you'll be bruised a bit. But anyway, so I remember that at the back of my uncle's house, and my cousins would be constantly fighting in the backyard, some sort of boxing.
Really?
And so that sticks in my head, and that's really influenced me from that period of time, yeah. Can you explain a little bit about Wing Chun? What is different about Wing Chun to other Kung Fu?
I don't know other different style of Kung Fu. Wing Chun something like fighting, but every action is not fighting. You can think about this exercise, this action, think about by physics, mathematics, and the commander or the general still use the thinking to the war.
I think that's another important thing is the morals maybe that go behind martial arts.
So it's not just physical, it's also mental, and it's about growing as a person, not just growing physically.
Yeah, there's a philosophy behind it, and I think that's probably what, even though a lot of people know Bruce Lee as the martial artist or the movie actor, but I think for me his biggest influence is definitely his philosophy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of philosophy behind the martial art, and I think for me personally, martial arts is this: if you can be a good martial artist, then I think you can be a good person in life as well. Sure, for sure.
Are there many people in Australia who are studying Wing Chun boxing?
At the moment, because I studied in Taiwan, my master's in Taiwan, so at the moment I'm just sort of getting an idea of what's going on in Australia. There is a few schools in Sydney and Melbourne.
Okay.
And I think there's one in Brisbane, but it's not as probably popular as say some of the other martial arts like Taekwondo.
Okay.
Or karate or something like that, yeah.
But you are a teacher, aren't you? You're
Yes.
qualified to teach
Yes.
Wing Chun boxing. So do you
Yes.
teach many people? Do you find that there's a lot of interest in Wing Chun boxing in
There-
Brisbane, in
Yeah, there's a lot of
Australia?
interest, I think, worldwide.
Worldwide?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that worldwide there's a lot of interest. The problem is I have high standards.
Oh, okay.
So for me to take on students, it's hard to, because you have to give 100% to them. Because when you teach, you know, teaching is a skill in itself. So if you can do a particular thing like martial arts, or even if you learn Chinese or whatnot, it's not necessarily that you can actually teach it to the next generation. So I think teaching is a skill in itself, and the skill of teaching martial arts requires a lot of effort, because every individual, like today when we go, we'll teach you some Wing Chun, but you might react differently to, say, someone else. So you've got to think of a way of actually how to get through the point that we're trying to get at. And
I hope I'll be a good student. I'll try my best.
要站好，
站好，站好。
这个马步很重要。
OK，
所以这脚
对
在这边，放在这里啊。
，OK，
OK， 然后要放松。
放松
你看那个膝盖
啊，
要弯曲，就一点点。
哦
OK，你懂吗 ？OK， 现在这个是叫做准备的姿势。OK， 还有手臂，它在这一只放在这里 ，OK， 下巴的旁边 ，OK， 在前面一点 ，OK。所以我要教你，这个是咏春里面的一种很有名的技巧 ，OK， 是叫做拉手。
拉手。
我下一个动作是这样子，你就把你的手臂这里拉下来
OK，
然后出拳，
好。
好吗
你？会打我吗？
不会，
不会。
OK，
那我放心了。
不用担心，不用担心
我相信你。哇，
这里，
哇，我才全I feel like I'm dying, but at least I've survived, so live another day to host FaceTime for another episode. What else have you done to promote this form of boxing? I know I've seen you on your website that you've done various media appearances in Australia and Taiwan.
I'm just getting into Taiwan, yeah.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've done?
Well, basically, in Australia, what I've done with a few of my students is we get to all the different events that may usually to do with Chinese, like overseas Chinese, and we do some Kung Fu demonstrations, and we try, and when I do a Kung Fu demonstration, I try to explain a lot more, like rather than just get up there and break wood and jump around and whatnot, I try to actually give a lesson. And I think that helps promote the art form better than just sort of being too distant from the crowd, in a sense. Like a lot of people will get up there and they'll do a particular demonstration, but there's no explanation behind what they're actually doing. So I think that's why I try and make it a bit different, is actually give an explanation.
Oh, okay, yep.
And
so it's not just a show.
No, it's a quick lesson.
A quick lesson.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy actually practicing the art or teaching it more?
I think a good balance for me, because I think if you teach too much, then you get frustrated because you're not training yourself.
Oh, okay.
But then if you train too much, I think you still need to be able to. You still need to, I think as a requirement of any good martial artist that reaches a certain level, it's definitely a requirement to pass the skills on to the next generation.
I don't know if martial arts is the same as other things, but I mean, I've heard that teaching is the best way to actually learn. So I guess teaching.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, because you learn about yourself too by teaching, and you have to figure out different ways of getting the message across to the student, and each student will react differently, so it does improve. And I think in the last 12 months I've been working with a lot of athletes back in Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Who don't have a martial arts background. So they come from sports like rugby league or rugby union.
Oh, okay.
So they're quite physically adapted at sport. They've got the natural genetics for it, but they don't have the initial coordination set.
Paul Rackemann has been a huge force behind increasing awareness of Wing Chun boxing in Australia. By participating in local television shows, working closely with the Chinese media in Australia, and also by teaching the art itself. Paul has also filmed various documentaries that can be found on YouTube and Tudor. I mean, you are heavily involved in the Chinese community in Australia, aren't you? So
Correct.
You work with newspapers and TV stations. I know I've seen you do an interview as well in Australia.
Oh yeah, well, I try to act as a bridge, if that makes sense, between the two communities. Because in Australia we have quite a big Chinese community, and I think it's good for people like yourself as well, people like us who have actually had experience of the two cultures, to act as a bridge between the two, and I think that helps break down a lot of barriers. And one thing I noticed actually was when I was teaching Wing Chun, I would have say 6 to 10 students on a Saturday afternoon. Half, maybe even more, were Chinese background,
wow.
And then you had the other half. By teaching martial arts, actually brought together people that would not necessarily have ever met before. Does that make sense? So it was like breaking down barriers by using the martial arts.
Learning together, studying together, practicing together. That's great. So people from overseas and local people all learning together. Now, we mentioned the Ipman films just a little bit earlier. I know you have a very personal connection to these films. Can you tell us more about that?
So anyway, in 1950, Ipman opened up his first kung fu school in Hong Kong, and that was the first time Wing Chun was ever actually taught openly to the public. Okay, so in 1950, so my master, my shifu, was actually Ipman's nephew.
Wow.
He started in 1950.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah. And then probably 4 or 5 years later, Bruce Lee started training at the same school. So you've basically got...
So you have a personal connection to Ipman and Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Bruce Lee, in the Kung Fu family tree, so Bruce Lee was my master's Shidi, Kung Fu younger brother. So you can look at Bruce Lee as being my Kung Fu uncle.
Wow.
By looking at the Kung Fu family tree,
So it's like 6 degrees of separation.
It is.
So just by knowing you, I also have a personal connection. Can I say that?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So it was good for me to actually come here to this southern China, like Hong Kong, Guangdong, because this is where it originated. So it's quite a personal, little. You could say a little bit emotional to get to Hong Kong. I think, to see.
Yeah,
Bruce Lee's home. Yeah,
because you've dedicated so much of your life to learning this art, and now you've come to the place where it's originated. So
yeah.
Well, FaceTime is very happy to be able to share this moment with you.
Well, I'm grateful too that I can actually tell the story as well.
Well, it's great to hear the story. Now, at New Year's, when we Guang, we always make resolutions, New Year's resolutions. If people at home are making Chinese New Year's resolutions, and one of their resolutions was to learn Wing Chun boxing this year, what advice would you give them?
I think advice would be to obviously you've got to find a good teacher.
Okay.
And a good teacher is someone who's actually more or less acts like a guide.
A guide, okay.
Because I have had masters or instructors in the past who tend to say it's like this, and criticize everyone else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think you need to find a good Wing Chun teacher who's going to teach something practical and actually is more or less a guide and can set you on your own journey. I think that's very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not about telling you exactly what to do, it's sort of just enabling you to sort of discover things for yourself and go on your own path.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose the best, could I use maybe metaphor, is like the difference is if you walk into a dark room, a teacher who grabs you by the hand and actually leads you across the room is one way, whereas the form of teaching that I prefer is if you go into a room and actually a candle lights up the room and you can see your own way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Now, if you at home want to get involved in Wing Chun boxing, then you can go to Paul's website, and the website is now on your screen. As always, if you want to watch any previous episodes that we've done here at GDTV World, you can go onto our website, or if you want to leave us a message, you can hop onto our Weibo page. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and make sure you have a great Chinese New Year. So, 新年快乐! See you next time. Bye for now. If I was attacked on the street, just out of the blue, what should I do? I mean, my first reaction would probably just...
Yeah, it depends on your distance.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, if you were to throw this hand at me, Alright? And let's say you're a lot taller, a lot stronger.
Okay.
Alright? It's probably safer for me to
Oh, okay.
kick.
Alright. Oh, okay, so